Can I retire at 60 with $700,000 in retirement investments and retirement savings? That's what we're going to look at today on the Your Financial EKG YouTube channel. And this is going to be a two-part series. The first part today, we're going to do a simplified retirement income strategy based off a 60-year-old with $700,000 in retirement investments. And next week, we're going to do a deep dive into the same question, can I retire at 60 with $700,000 in retirement and savings? But we're going to look at it in multiple different scenarios, wondering, can I retire? So make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on both videos. So let's look at this right now. Can I retire at 60 with $700,000 in retirement investments? So I've got a 60-year-old. He's got $700,000 in retirement savings and retirement investments. His Social Security at 70 is $3,300. Now, what I didn't tell you was that this gentleman's name is Mike, and he's single. So he's going to retire at 60, and he wants to take Social Security at 70. Now, because he is single, he wants to maximize his Social Security check. He's looking at it like a pension. Because he's single, there's no other income coming in from a spouse. There's no other retirement assets coming from someone else's 401k. There's some inheritance that might come in the future, but his retirement is all on him as a single individual. So he's looking at Social Security saying, how can I turn this in to the largest pension that I can get? Do I have enough retirement investments to get me from 60 to 70 without depleting all of my retirement savings? So he would like to take Social Security at 70. That would be $3,300 per month. His retirement income need is only $3,400. So he's got to need $3,400 a month off of his retirement investments between the age 60 and age 70. Now, obviously, this $3,300 is going to have some COLA increases on it between 60 and 70. And this number right here, his retirement income need, that $3,400 in expenses, that's going to have inflation on it of 3.24%. Now, that's the 108-year average for inflation. That's what I use here at Your Financial EKG. We're always going to use the nominal inflation figure. Now, his concerns, can I retire? Do I have enough assets to retire at 60, or do I need to work a few more years before I get into retirement? His second concern is, like many of you, it's inflation. What is inflation going to do to his retirement savings and retirement investments? If he starts taking $3,400 a month off of his retirement savings, is that going to keep up with inflation? And his last concern is sequence of returns. Now, you may not have ever heard of sequence of return risk. Let me explain that for you real quick. Sequence of return risk is the risk that you go into retirement and the stock market has bad years right away. Meaning you might retire and the market might fall 10%, then it might fall 12%, then it might fall 5% in the third year, and you've got this first 3 years of retirement where your investments have basically just gone down because the market's gone down. Think about the year 2000. If you retired in 2000, you had 3 years of a bad market. So it wasn't until 2004 before the market started to come back up. And then we all know what happened in 2008. So for this gentleman, sequence of return risk is a very important risk for him to think about. It's a big concern for him. Again, single guy, Social Security and his retirement investments, he's concerned about the market. Now, on the next video, we're going to do a deeper dive into sequence of returns, and I'm going to show you how you can, based off of past historical decades, we can get more confidence in our retirement analysis. So let's go to a simple, can I retire? I'm 60 with $700,000 in retirement investments. All right, so we're looking at a 60-year-old with $700,000 in retirement investments, asking the question, can I retire? What about inflation? And what about sequence of return risk? And that's really what I want to look at today, sequence of return risk. Now remember, sequence of return risk is the risk that the market is going to go down or have bad years at the beginning of your retirement, meaning you're going to start with lower money because the retirement assets invested in the market have gone down, okay? So let's look at two scenarios. Let's look at a 6% rate of return for the next 20 years from 60 to 80, and then let's look at a 4% return between 60 and 80. Now remember, this is a simplified retirement income strategy, so I'm putting it on the board. The next video, make sure you subscribe, is going to be a more detailed sequence of return risk, looking at past decades to determine, can I retire? What about inflation? And what about sequence of return risk? What if the market goes down? Okay, so the first, 6%. So he's got $709,000 in retirement investments. His retirement income need is $3,400 per month. Now we're going to do a 6% rate of return, meaning the money that's in the market, his retirement investments are going to earn 6% a year, okay? And inflation is going to be at 3% a year. So 6% on the investments, 3% on inflation. The 3% is going to go on his retirement income. After 10 years, his $709,000 will grow to $732,762. So he's grown about what? 20-something thousand dollars, all right? Now at 70, he's going to have $732,000. Now his retirement income has 3% inflation on it. So it's grown from $3,400 a month up to $4,569. Now, but something has happened at 70 for this gentleman. He's turned on Social Security. Now, if you remember, his Social Security is $3,300 a month at 70. So we're going to plug that in, $3,300. So his retirement income need is $4,569. His Social Security is $3,300, which means off of his investments, he's going to need $1,269 per month. Now, I know some of you are going to leave comments and say, hey, Drew, you didn't put any COLA increases on Social Security. I know I didn't do it. I'm just base planning here, all right? Now, in the software, you're going to see all the COLA increases, everything that your heart desires when it comes to financial planning. But this is the board. And we're just trying to get a good idea of, can I retire? That's really all we're trying to figure out, because if we can't do it on the board, it doesn't matter how fancy our software is. We need to make sure that the math works. Math never lies, okay? Now, if you want me to do a can I retire scenario for you to see if you can retire now or later, listen, in the comment section, there's a booklet called The Roadmap to Retirement. It's a free link. Click on it, download the booklet, make sure that you read that, understand retirement income, and also select the box, yes, that I want to meet with Drew, and we can do a can I retire scenario tactically built just for you. So between 70 and 80, remember, we have a 6% rate of return and we have a 3% inflation rate on his retirement investments. $732,000 now grows to $1,125,221. So he started with $709 at 60, and over 20 years earning 6% rate of return, he's grown to $1,125,000. Okay, so that's 6%. Let's look at 4%, just 2% behind 6%. So we've got the same numbers. We're starting at $709,000, but now instead of a 6% rate of return, we're going to put a 4% rate of return on the money that's invested. So that means his investments, we have them at TD Ameritrade, that's who we use as our custodian, they're going to earn 4% a year. So low single-digit returns for his retirement investments, all right? 3% still are inflation. So from 60 to 70, taking $3,400 a month off of his investments, his $709,000 drops to $556,351. It's a $150,000 difference between 6%. Actually, it's almost a $200,000 difference in the 10-year span. But when you look at the numbers, a 2% decrease in his retirement investments rate of return is huge. Now, at 70, remember, we're going to kick on Social Security of $3,300. $4,569 is his retirement income need now. It's the same as it was at 6%, 3% inflation on his original value. But look at this. His $556 over 10 years grows to $642,000. So we made it to 70, earning 4% a year. Now we've turned on Social Security, and our assets are growing again because we've delayed Social Security for so long. So compare the numbers, 642 to 1.1 million. That's a huge difference in just 4 and 6%. So if we're doing this on the board, can I retire at 60 with $700,000 in retirement investments or retirement savings? I would say yes, but because on the board there's such a big difference between these two figures, we need to do a deeper dive, and that's going to be on the next video. Thank you so much for watching. God bless. Bye-bye. Can I retire at 60 with $700,000 in retirement savings? Now remember, we had $1 million in retirement savings and now there's been a recession. There's been a stock market crash and Darren's asking the question, Drew, I lost $300,000 in the stock market. Can I retire at 60 with $700,000 in retirement savings? Let's look at it. All right, here we go. So we got Danny Granger here. And he is currently retired. Now, he was making about $100,000 a year in his job. He hasn't retired yet. So in the software, we're going to show him retired. But if he needs to continue working, he can certainly do that. And he's making $100,000 a year. Now, for Social Security, we're first going to look at taking Social Security at 67, which would be $3,000 a month. So we're going to have about a 7-year gap from age 60 to 67, which would be his full retirement age, where he would get 100% of his full retirement benefit. Now, if we take it at 62 or any time under the age of 67, he's going to get a reduced Social Security benefit. At 62, it's 70% of your full retirement benefit, and it goes up from there. Now, that might make sense in Darren's case, but I first want to look at taking it at 67 at his full retirement age, or even taking it at 70. The reason for that is he's single. If you are single, your retirement income, your retirement itself, your retirement investing accounts, that's all on you. That's on your investing. That's on your planning. There's no other extra income, extra retirement savings that's going to come into the picture. So for Darren, it's not about cumulative Social Security benefits, meaning I need to take it as soon as possible to get the most benefits. It's about cash flow. It's about guaranteeing as much income as we can for the rest of his life. So that's why we're going to look at 67 first. Now, there aren't any pensions, so Darren just works for a regular employer with no pensions. In assets, he has 2 assets. Now, we're considering him retired, and we would roll over his 401k to an IRA. Because he's over the age of 59 and a half, we're not going to have to worry about a 10% penalty. We're not going to have to use the rule of 55. We're not going to have to use a 72T. If you don't know what those terms are, go back to the Your Financial EKG YouTube page, type them in. I've got plenty of videos. If you're under the age of 59 and a half and you want to retire early, use the rule of 55, use a 72T. Check out those videos. So we're assuming that Darren has rolled over his 401k to an IRA. We've got $660,000 in his IRA. We've got $40,000 in the bank. He's lost, he was at $1 million. He was at 960 and now we're at 660. So we've lost a good amount of money in the stock market. And Darren has even told me, he confessed, listen, Drew, because of what's happened in the past with the stock market, I got greedy. I stayed invested too long in tech and in growth aspects. And what happened was the market swung on a swivel. He didn't understand where he was at in the retirement scenario, meaning as he got closer to his retirement date, he didn't adjust his investments for retiring. I'm 37 years old. I'm very aggressive in my retirement savings. Darren at 58 should not have been the same aggressive. He needed to slow that down because he wanted to retire at 60. So we've got about $700,000 in retirement savings. Darren does have a home worth $450,000, which we talked about, that he has a mortgage on. So if we look down here, we have $700,000 in retirement assets. We've got $450,000 in a home. So we have a total net worth of $1.15 million. And he's asking the question, can I retire at 60 with $700,000 in spendable assets, $450,000 in non-spendable assets, and a net worth of $1.1 million? Now, from a portfolio standpoint, we're going to give the money that's in the market a 6% rate of return, and the house is going to get a 1.5% rate of return, which means every year the investments in the projection for the EKG
are going to grow at 6% and the house is going to grow at 1.5%. Now, you and I know that the market doesn't move up in a straight line. There's going to be a lot of volatility, i.e. 2022. So we need to look at that as well. But first, we're going to look at just a straight geometric return. Okay, so let's go to expenses. From an expense standpoint, Darren has $50,000 a year in expenses, which equates to $4,166 per month. So we're at $50,000 in annual expenses, $4,166 per month in monthly expenses. We're going to give that an inflation rate of 3.24%, and that's going to happen on a monthly basis. So that 3.24 is going to kick in every month. Now it's a 3.24% for the year. Divide that out by 12, and that's how each month is going to do for inflation. I'll show you that in just a second. From a cash flow standpoint, this is where we'd add in any kind of like vacations, travel, buying a car, buying a camper, whatever. He knows that he can't do that right now. So we're not going to add any of those in because he just wants to recoup what he lost and hope to retire. So that's what we're going to look at. So let's go to retirement. Let's see where we're at. So essentially, here we are retiring at 60, okay? Now remember I told you about inflation? You see how his expenses on a monthly basis are going up based on inflation? The raspberries that I bought at Walmart today are a different cost than they were last month. That's called inflation. The milk that you buy today is different than it was last month. That's inflation. It doesn't move up on a 12-month calendar. It usually moves up on a monthly, sometimes weekly basis. And you see that going to the grocery store. And one of his main concerns was food cost with inflation. And so this is why we want to calculate this into the EKG. It's why you need an EKG to retire. You need a financial plan that's looking at the intricacies of inflation, taxes, and everything that goes into your retirement plan. So here we are at 67. We've got the $3,000 kicking in for Social Security. And so if you look at this, basically at 85, Darren is out of spendable assets. He still has his home worth $650,000, and hopefully by then we've got it paid off, and we have Social Security income of $4,195. So what could Darren do at this point? Well, as a financial advisor, I'm going to ask him, hey, do you ever plan on moving? And he would say yes or no. If his answer is no, I want to stay in this house forever, then maybe we talk about making some adjustments to his retirement date, Social Security, etc. If he said, well, I could move, I don't have a problem moving, and there's some equity in that house that we could sell and repurpose that back in the plan, that's the point where we start talking about, yeah, maybe you sell your house, move into a smaller house. In this case, he lives in Florida. That's a little tough because he's in a smaller house now. And so the market would have to come down and he'd have to sell his house at a high. Again, real estate's a tricky environment. Another thing that he could do is a reverse mortgage. Not something I necessarily want him to do, not something necessarily that I recommend. But if he wants to retire at 60 with $700,000, then he could do that. So what's a better option? Well, I asked him, I said, Darren, do you like your job? He said, well, yeah, I like my job. And I said, well, why do you want to retire? You're single. Why do you want to retire? He said, well, I just thought it was a good age. And I just felt like this is a good time. I'm healthy. I can travel. And I said, well, do you think you could work another couple years and be okay? And he said, well, yeah, I could work. I enjoy my job. I said, well, let's look at that. So let's go look at that real quick. Let's go back because he's at a pretty good place. Look at this. The amount needed today to avoid a shortfall is $300,000. He basically lost what he needed to retire at 60. Now his rate of return needed to not run out of money is 7.87%. And we're running it at 6. So we're only about 1% off on rate of return, which means we're close. So we go back to income, and let's, instead of retiring, let's retire at 65. I already had this plugged in for you. So let's retire at Medicare age. We'll go 5 years. We get on Medicare, we lose the healthcare expense, we're able to save more. Remember, he's got a $100,000 salary. From a monthly contribution standpoint, that puts another $1,700 a month, his contribution plus the match, into his 401k for another 5 years, right? Basically 60 months. So let's go back to retirement. Now he's out of money at 98. So at a spendable asset, we're out at 98. We got an $800,000 home, and we still got Social Security, and somewhere around here, look at this, At 82, he's got $1 million and he's got a $628,000 house. We could sell the house, have $1 million in spendable assets, and lower our expenses. So, can I retire at 60 with $700,000 after a recession, after a market crash? Yes, you can, but there might need to be some adjustments. Thank you so much for watching. God bless. Bye-bye. All right, can I retire at 60 with $500,000 saved for retirement, and should I claim Social Security early? That's what we're going to look at. We're going to dive into the software, and I'm going to show you why this couple should claim Social Security at 62, not delaying their Social Security, and I'll go through the different reasons why that is. Are you ready for that? Because I know I just said something that you don't hear a lot of financial advisors talk about, and that's claiming Social Security early. All right, so here's what we got. We've got Drew and Valerie. Obviously, that's me and my wife. The names have been changed on this couple to protect the innocent. Now, they are both 60 years old. They do live in Florida, so they have a low state and local tax, but they still have federal taxes, so that's something we do need to look at. And they're both retired. So, we're already in retirement. Now, they came to me after they retired and said, hey, when should we claim Social Security, and are we going to be okay? Now, I was doing a full financial EKG for these individuals. Would have loved for them to come to me before they retired and ask those questions, but it's okay that they came to me afterwards. Hey, we're going to work wherever you are at. And if you want a financial EKG, in the description below is a link to get in touch with us, and we can go through a retirement plan for you that's individualized. Because you can get a retirement plan anywhere. You can get a free plan at Vanguard. You can get a free plan at Fidelity. But you can only get Your Financial EKG with me. All right, so here we go. So Social Security benefits. Now for Drew at 62, it's $1,750. For Valerie at 62, it's $2,100. Now she was the primary breadwinner for most of their lives. So let me show you the Social Security differences here. So for her, her full retirement age is 67 because she was born after the year 1960. The benefit at 67 would be $3,000. For him, it would be $2,500. And you can see how there's a difference and how they grow as we wait. So at 63 for her, it's $2,250, $2,400, $2,600, $2,800, $3,000. And if you delay even longer, $3,240, $3,480, and $3,720. Now that all looks fine and dandy, but we've got to get to these ages first, and we have to think about where's the income going to come from if we delay Social Security, and what are the taxes going to be like on those assets. So for them, they have traditional IRAs, 2 of them plus the bank. And so if they're going to delay Social Security, all of their income is going to come from their IRAs. So does it make sense to delay Social Security and start taking money out of their IRA early? Pay the taxes now. There's no penalty, but pay those taxes now to delay Social Security? Or do we delay Social Security now, defer the IRAs, allow those IRAs to continue to grow? What I would like to see is when we get to our mid-70s, our mid-80s, that we still have a nest egg there. We haven't drained it all. And so you've got to look at this on an individualistic approach, because when we get to our 70s and 80s, there's going to be long-term care, there's going to be things that we're going to need money for. So if we drain all our assets first to have a larger Social Security benefit, what are we going to do if we have an emergency? So let's talk about that. Let's look at that. So we're going to look at taking Social Security at 62. Now there's no pension benefits. And if you look at assets, you can see they basically have 3 different assets. Drew has an IRA for $150,000. Valerie has an IRA of $350,000, and they have a bank account of $15,000. Okay, so they've got $515,000 in total retirement assets. This is our emergency fund, this $15,000, so we're not really counting that in their retirement savings. We're only counting these 2 IRAs. They're not making any contributions because they're not working. They are retired. They do have a home that is paid for $400,000. So we've got about $900,000 in total net worth, of which $500,000 is being used for retirement income, $15,000 is an emergency fund, and $400,000 is a protected asset. It's a physical asset that we could do a reverse mortgage down the road. We could sell it, rent, whatever. So it's there. It's not necessarily something we want to do, but it's there if we need to. All right. Now, from a rate of return standpoint, we're going to look at a 6% rate of return on all assets. Oops, missed 6% there. And I can show you if we take it down to 5% and 4%, we might get into that in this video, we might not, depending on the length of the video. But what I really want to concentrate on today is Social Security. Now, from an expense standpoint, their expenses are $5,000 per month, and we're going to look at a 3% inflation rate. Okay, so that's $60,000 a year that they need off of their retirement investments, or a combination of Social Security and retirement investments. Again, we're talking about taxes and what makes the most sense. So let's go to taxes. So we're going to take Social Security early. So we need to go to that year. I want to show you something. So this is the year 2023. They are 60. We're not taking Social Security yet. So at 60, they've got to take out $50,559 from their assets to pay for everything they need to do, right? And we're looking at this kind of mid-year, so that's why it's $50,000, not the 60. Okay, so it's March. So if we take out the standard deduction of $27,700, that means our taxable income, or our tax, is $2,318. That means we're in the 4.57% projected federal tax rates. It's really low. It's really, really good. Now let's go to 2024. Let's go for a whole year of income. So here we go, $64,649. Now you might think, what's the extra income? That's inflation and taxes. Okay, remember their expenses are $5,000 a month with inflation. So we've got $64,649 came out of our retirement investments that we're hopefully earning 6% a year on. That's what we're projecting. We have a standard deduction of $27,700. That means taxable income's $37,101. So we have our base tax, over base. So our federal tax is $4,000, which now puts us at the 6.19. So we've gone 2 years of taking out $50,000 and $60,000. Now we're going to go into our third year, and now we're going to start taking Social Security. What's that going to do to our taxes? So let's go to 2025. Now look at this. Here's our taxable Social Security, $7,073. You might be thinking, Drew, why is it only $7,000 taxable? It's because we're using provisional income. Provisional income is taking your investment income, like your IRAs, ordinary income, plus interest, plus half of your Social Security, plus any tax-free interest. That gives you provisional income, and that determines how much of your Social Security is taxable. Well, for them, their provisional income is only causing $7,000 of their Social Security to be taxed. Now they're taking all of their Social Security, which we did it on the board, so all of their Social Security is $46,200 at 62. But only $7,000 of that $46,200 is being calculated into their taxes. And so we have some taxable withdrawals here. This is just because of inflation and taxes. Here's our standard deduction of $27,700. Now our total tax is $154, which puts us in the 0.53% tax bracket. So we were already in a really low tax bracket, but now we're in the 0.53 tax bracket. You following me? Let's go to 2026. Now we're in a zero tax bracket. Look at that. Zero. Now why are we in a zero tax bracket? Because we've had Social Security for the whole year. Now in the last scenario, or I'm sorry, in the last year in 2025, their Social Security didn't kick on for a couple months. But now we've had a whole year of Social Security. So again, our taxable Social Security is $5,373. Our money that we need out of our investments is $18,898 for extra income with inflation and taxes. Standard deduction, look at those zeros. So from the year 2026, so from age 63 to age 73, they're pretty much going to be at zero under the current tax code. Now we all know that taxes are going to change in 2027. So let's go to 2027 and let's adjust taxes. So the year 2027, let's do a 25% increase on taxes. We'll save that. So now we've adjusted taxes by 25% for the year 2027. That's back to the Obama era taxes. Because that's what will happen. If the Trump tax code's not extended or refined or they change it, it reverts back to the Obama era. All right, so now let's look at, can I retire? Right? We've retired at 60. How long is our money going to last? Because that's really the question we need to know. Are we going to delay Social Security? Are we going to take it early? How long is our money going to last? Now, in their case, here, let's look at this. So we're at age 60. We have no pension and no Social Security. Remember, we're going to take it early, but we don't have anything else between those early years. So our assets go from 515 down to 455 because we're having to use that for retirement income. But then at age 62, our Social Security kicks on, which means our expenses at $5,423 subtracted from our Social Security means we only need $1,500 a month. Now that does increase with inflation, and eventually at 92, we're out of spendable assets, but we do have this house. So it's not a bad scenario, right? We could reverse mortgage the house, we could sell it. So taking Social Security early for them made the most sense tax-wise, and it got them into their early 90s, retiring at 60 with $500,000. Now, let's go back, because I hear a lot of you talking about it. Should they delay Social Security? Let's look at it. Let's go back to the calculator. Let's put them at 67, save that, and let's just look at it. Let's go to taxes. Let's change the brackets back down. Oh, we're going to increase in 2027, so let's keep that. So let's go to 2024, that's a full year. So this is not going to change. There's 6.19. 2025, 6.49. So we're paying taxes. Remember at age 62, we weren't paying any taxes. Taking Social Security early. Here we're still paying taxes. Now it's just a little bit. $4,000 here, $4,000 there. Here's our increase, 8.55. Now we're paying about $6,200. But let's go to retirement and see what that does. Oh wow, look at this. Now we're going to delay Social Security to 67, but look what it does. We're out of money at 86. Remember at 62 we were out at 92. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. Now how long did we delay Social Security? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. By delaying Social Security 7 years, we ran out of income 7 years earlier than we did claiming Social Security at 62. Now, does this work for everybody? Is this your situation? Should you run out and claim Social Security at 62? I don't know. You need to contact me. We need to do a Social Security optimization schedule. We need to do a retirement EKG. We need to do a financial EKG to make sure you can get to retirement, through retirement, protect your ability to stay in retirement. But I wanted to show you why for them it made sense to collect early, to save on taxes, to use that retirement income for those first 2 years, take that Social Security. I'm not worried about RMDs as much because, again, showing it in the software with increased taxes, they're out at 92 years old. So if the tax code stays where it's at or increases, they're going to be okay. And so when you're running your financial EKG, it has to be based on you. All right? Well, hey, thank you so much for watching. God bless. Bye-bye. All right, can I retire at 55 with $750,000 in retirement savings? Let's look at this scenario. So again, we've got a 55-year-old individual. Social Security at 67 is going to be $2,800 a month. We've got $750,000 in retirement savings, okay? I'm not specifying the specific investment vehicle. We've just got $750,000 in retirement savings. Our retirement expenses are $50,000 a year. That is an average annual retirement expense for the United States. So maybe you're in Detroit, You don't have $50,000 in retirement expenses. Maybe you're in Louisville, it might be less. Just depends on where you are in the country. Our rate of return for the $750,000 in the market is 6%, and our inflation rate is 3%. That means that our spending is going to increase by about 3% per year. That's because that's the 108-year inflation average, which is calculated by the CPI, which is the Consumer Price Index. So let's look at this. I want to retire at 55. I've got $750,000 in retirement savings. Can I do it? So from 55 to 67, our expenses would be $4,166 per month. That's $50,000. Now, we're going to put inflation on this, and that inflation is going to be calculated monthly. I've used my retirement software to get all of these figures because I wanted to be exact, down to the decimal point penny, 0.001 exact. So I'm not going to use my calculator. I'm going to use some software to make sure we are exactly correct. Now, 6% is our rate of return on the money in the market, and we're going to use 3% inflation. Okay, so inflation is 3%. How much money are we going to have at 67 when we kick on Social Security? Well, simple. We're going to have $328,382. So we're down $400 and something thousand basically. Taking out $50,000 a year, inflated at 3%. So at 67, now our expenses have increased because of inflation. Social Security's kicking in, so we're getting Social Security of $2,800 a month. But now our expenses, because of inflation, have gone up, and essentially we run out of money at 74 years old. We're out at zero. Or we're out at 74, we have $0 in retirement savings. So can I retire at 55 with $750,000? Not with $50,000 in annual expenses. Now, keep in mind, we've got to change some things. We either have to lower our monthly expenses, we have to raise the amount of money we make in the market. So our rate of return has to increase, or inflation has to lower. Well, let's just say this is not going to change. So inflation's not going anywhere. So it's going to just stay at 3%. Most people will say, well, Drew, I can earn more in the market. Well, let's see. How much do you have to earn to have $50,000 in retirement income based off of $750,000 in retirement savings and inflation at 3%? Your rate of return would have to be 9.38%. Now, my question to you is, can you guarantee 9.4% in your retirement investing accounts every year between ages 55 and 100? Probably not. And so now we have to go back to the expenses. We've got to lower our retirement expenses. So if we want to retire at 55 with $750,000, we either have to lower our expenses or bring in some more income. Now, if you're married, obviously this scenario is going to be different. I'm looking at this as a single individual. So let's look at this. Can I retire at 55 with $750,000 and lower our expenses? What do we have to get to in order to do this? Well, $750,000. When we look at the calculation, in order to retire at 55 with $750,000, our starting monthly retirement expenses would have to be $3,100. Because remember, that $3,100 is going to get inflation. So we're going to get 6% is our rate of return in the market. Our inflation rate is 3%. So from 55 to 67, we're going to take out $3,100 from our retirement investing accounts. So at 67, we'll have $687,445. Now at 67, we're kicking on Social Security of $2,800. Our expenses have increased from the $3,100. Now they're at $4,606. That's what our expenses are. So we'll take our expenses, we'll subtract out our Social Security, and that's what we're going to need from our retirement investing accounts for the rest of our life. 6% still our rate of return, and 3% is inflation. How long is now this money going to last? We are out. We're at 0 at 98. I feel really good about being at 0 at 98 years old. So if you're one to retire at 55 with $750,000, assuming 6% rate of return, assuming 3% inflation rate, and assuming that you're single, you need to start with $3,100 in retirement income. All right? So I hope this has helped. Can I retire at 61 or at 62 with $515,000 saved for retirement? So let's look at that. Can I retire at 62 with $515,000? So if you go to retirement, you can see we're at 62. We've got $515,000 saved for retirement. We've got a $343,000 debt-free house. Okay, so we've got $343,000 in equity. Now, what I do for real estate is I just give it a 1.5% increase over time. Now, it could be higher than that, it could be negative. We're just doing a 1.5% increase over his retirement. Here's the pension kicking on at $2,500 at 62. And again, the pension has a 3% cost of living adjustment. So it's 3% every year it's going to grow. So our net monthly income, $2,169, that's what tax is coming out. Our net monthly expenses are $4,127. Remember, 10 years ago, his expenses were $3,000. That's where we started. Inflation has eaten into those expenses, so now they're $4,127, which means that Al has to take out $1,958 from his retirement investments account for retirement income to live off of, okay? So as we can see, he takes Social Security at 67. There's $2,340. There's a Social Security kicking in. And really, if we go to 100, based on a 6% rate of return at 100, he's got $976,579 in retirement assets. So can I retire at 62 with $515,000? Yes, you can. I'm 52 with $250,000 saved for retirement. When can I retire? Well, for Al, it makes the most sense at 62. But what about taking Social Security early? Remember, if you take Social Security at 62, you only get 70% of your full retirement benefit. But what about for Al? Why don't we take it? Let's look at what happens if we take Social Security early. Now, here's the number I need you to remember. At 100, Al has $976,000 left over. Let's use a round number, 976. Let's go to claiming Social Security at 62 and see what happens. So we'll go up here to scenarios. Let's go to current scenario. So that's the one we're working on with taking Social Security at 62. So you can see here, Al taking Social Security at 62, we had $1,800 in Social Security benefits. So that's 70% of his full retirement benefit. Pension's still the same. There's the $2,500 starting at 62. Now remember, 976 was taking Social Security at 67. What his assets would be at 100. Let's look at what they would be taking Social Security at 62. So here we are. We got our $515 in retirement assets, 62 years old. Here's our pension of $2,500. Here's our Social Security of $1,800. Remember, we kicked it on early. So our net cash flow is $322, meaning we need $322 from our retirement accounts for retirement income. At 100, look at this. Al actually has $1,264,752. So let's use a round number. Let's say 1264. Let's subtract out 976. So by him taking Social Security at 62, he actually has $288,000 more at 100. Now I realize you're probably thinking, Drew, why are you planning to 100? I just want you to see this long term. What's this going to look like over a lot of years? And so for him, for Al, it made more sense to take Social Security early than to delay it to 67 or 70. Now, I know that might be heresy among someone reading a Forbes article or reading Barron's magazine, but you cannot take a cookie-cutter approach to your retirement planning. That's why we do an EKG. That's why Al called me and said, Drew, I need an EKG to know when I need to take Social Security. Can I travel when I get into retirement? And will my retirement assets last forever? And so we've answered two of those three so far. We looked at Social Security and we answered, will he run out of retirement assets? Both of those are no and 62. So let's look at travel. So Al wants to travel for 10 years after he retires, 62 to 72, and he wants to spend $5,000 a year traveling. Now, he's a modest guy, so we're going to do $5,000 a year. Remember, he's single, so we don't have a lot of couple expenses. Now, he might meet someone, and who knows, but we'll adjust that when that time comes. That's why we have an EKG, so we can make adjustments, and that's why we do reviews. If you're not reviewing with your advisor at least once a year, make sure you call me because we need to be reviewing it. So let's add this in here. So Al wants to travel. So let's put in some travel income. And he wants to take it on an annual basis. And he wants to take $5,000 a month. And we do need to have some inflation on this. So that's going to be, let's put 3% inflation. And let's start this when he retires. And let's do it for 10 years. And we're going to take this out of his TSP. And it's going to go to travel. Have fun. Okay, so save and close. Now let's look at that. Let's see what that does to the retirement income plan. So we go to retirement and look at this. We start taking out the $5,000. There it is for travel. You can see it getting inflation. Okay, here's our pension, here's Social Security. At 100 with the travel, he has $903,000 left in spendable assets. Still has the house, obviously, right? 616, but 903 in spendable assets. Remember, the other plan, taking Social Security at 67, no travel, he was at 976 in assets at 100. So this is still a better plan for him if he wants to travel. So what we're also going to look at for Al is kind of finagling the travel numbers if he wants to go somewhere for more money, maybe he wants to do Europe, something like that. So that's something we get into a more detailed approach when we're going through the Zoom calls. So I hope this has helped in your retirement planning, especially if you're in your late 40s and early 50s and you don't feel like you've saved enough for retirement. Let Al give you some confidence to get you to retirement, through retirement, and protect your ability to stay in retirement. Thank you so much for watching. God bless. Bye-bye. All right, let's look at one of my personal clients, and they're asking, hey Drew, I'm 64, can I retire? Now, the survey from Northwestern Mutual said that most Americans believe they can retire at 64 years old if they have $1.25 million. And we just showed in a previous scenario that that is correct. So Cindy is asking, can I retire? How much do I need? So let's go through that. So Cindy's 64, okay, she lives down here in Florida. She lives in Palm Harbor, Florida, and her expenses on an annual basis are $60,000 a year. So that means she would need $60,000 in retirement income every year. Now, that's going to get an inflation adjustment of 3% on an annual basis. Her Social Security, were she to claim at 64, is $1,300. And she currently has $800,000 in retirement assets. So, when we do the planning, $800,000 is not enough money. She's actually out of money about 82 years old. So when I was talking to Cindy, I said, okay, Cindy, we need to look at adjusting a few things. We either need to adjust our expenses or our retirement age, or we need to grow our assets. So for her, her expenses are pretty much locked in. Because of the home market here in Florida, she is locked in where she is at. So her expenses are going to stay at $60,000 annually plus inflation. The things that she can control are retiring later, taking Social Security later, and continuing to save and invest. So I said, okay, Cindy, let's just get a number that we can shoot for to retire whenever you decide to do that. So we want to use the same rate of returns that we used in the last scenario. So her money's going to grow at 4%. And the reason we're using 4% is because we want to be very, very conservative. I don't want to do anything to overshoot her retirement journey, because her confidence, her trust is in me to get her to retirement, to get her through retirement, and protect her ability to stay in retirement, which is why when we do this scenario, we have done this in the financial EKG software. So I know down to the penny how much money Cindy needs to retire. Now, inflation is going to be 3%. So we're going to use inflation of 3%. Her expenses are $60,000 annually, and those are growing by 3% every year. Now, she is new to her home, so her mortgage will not be paid off until she's in her late 80s, okay? So $60,000 annually plus inflation is going to be there for the foreseeable future. So when we do the calculations on the calculator and in the software, we come up with this number. This is how much she needs to have $0 at 100. $1,435,374. So that is the number that she needs to shoot for. Now, here's the thing. The longer Cindy works, the closer she gets to 70, the higher this Social Security is going to grow, the less we're going to need in retirement savings. This is saying basically, if you want to retire in the next 12 months, that's how much you're going to need. For her, that's not going to happen. So we need to look at adjusting some of the other aspects of her retirement. Now, this is not to degrade her savings or to make her feel incompetent. We're just trying to get a good number and a realization that we don't want to go into retirement and run out in our late 80s. I don't want you to have to go back to work at 88 years old, okay? So I hope this has helped you understand exactly how much you need to save for retirement and making sure that you have a good number and confidence going into your retirement journey. So thank you so much for watching. God bless. Bye-bye. Can I retire at 61 years old with $1.4 million saved for retirement? Well, that's what we're going to look at. I've got David, who's 61. I've got Cindy, who's 57. They're asking the question, can we retire? And they have three main concerns. Spousal Social Security benefits for Cindy, what happens if David passes away first, and their investments. And we're going to look at all three of these in detail. So let's get into the software today, asking the question, can I retire? So we've got David and Cindy here, and they're asking the question, can we retire? David is 61 years old and Cindy is 57 years old. Now, when we did the Social Security analysis, it is in their best interest for David to take Social Security at 70. The reason we're going to do it at 70 is because David's going to get 124% of his full retirement benefit. By doing that, he's getting the maximum Social Security payment that is allowed, 124% of his full retirement benefit. If David passes away before Cindy, Cindy will inherit his Social Security at 70. So his 70-year-old Social Security, she would get that. So if David lives to 80 and passes, Cindy's going to get whatever his Social Security benefit is. That's a spousal Social Security benefit. Cindy, being a homemaker, has very little Social Security benefit. So we want to try to get as much Social Security for her as well. So what we're going to do for Cindy, we're going to do a spousal benefit at 67 for her, which would be $1,650. Now, that is half of what David's Social Security benefit would be at 67. So as long as the higher earner is claiming Social Security and is over 67, Cindy, which is David's spouse, can get half of his full retirement Social Security, which is $1,650, okay? So that's a simplistic way to look at this. There's a little bit more of a detailed and complicated Social Security strategy that we actually went through with them, but I don't want to go through that on YouTube because I would lose you, okay? So there's their Social Security. Now, from an asset standpoint, we just talked about this. They have various assets. They have two property assets, their house which is worth $450,000, and they have a farm that is worth $160,000. They have zero debt. So there's no debt on their real estate, which is awesome heading into retirement. Now, so we've got, well, look at this, $1.4 million in spendable assets. We've got $610 in protected assets, which means our total portfolio value is $2,099,000. So, and actually a pretty good scenario. Now, you might be saying, hey, Drew, of course they can retire. And you're probably typing that into the comments right now. But for them, the biggest concerns are Social Security. We just talked about that. We want to look at what happens if David passes away and investments. Those are the bigger things. Now, from a risk standpoint, currently they've got 84.96% of their assets at risk of market loss, and they've got 15% at low risk, meaning the market is not going to cause their investments to go down. After we did a risk assessment, after we went through some risk questions, it was determined that they really want to have about 60% of their assets in low risk and 40% at risk. Okay, now obviously they've got to earn a rate of return on their low risk assets. With interest rates going up, that's been a big benefit for especially things like treasuries, fixed income, municipal bonds, anything that is a low risk asset. Now, our portfolio weighted rate of return is going to be 6%, except for the money that's in the bank, and the house and the farm are only given a 1% rate of return to. Now, let me explain rate of return real quick. Rate of return means this IRA is still invested in the stock market, and because it's invested, it's going to grow. And so we need to have a projection for that growth. We can't just say, well, it's going to get whatever. We need to put a physical number in there. So we can look at 4, we can look at 6, we can look at 5. The reason I like 6 is because it's a little bit more conservative than what the overall market has returned over the last 50 years. Okay, so we've looked at their Social Security, we've looked at their assets. Now let's go to their expenses, because they do have some higher expenses. Now, their current monthly expenses after tax are $5,000. So this is after tax, meaning if we're pulling money out of IRAs, there's going to have to be more than $5,000 coming out to pay Uncle Sam. So $5,000 is their current monthly expenses after tax, which is $60,000 a year. Inflation's going to get a 3.24% kick every year, so that expense, that $5,000 is going to go up every year by 3.24%. And how the software does it is it calculates it monthly, which I love that. It does a monthly calculation instead of an annual calculation. From a cash flow standpoint, they've got 2 specific cash flows that we have to add into their plan that we know of right now. Now, obviously, they're 61 and 57, so things are going to change. They may inherit some money. There might be a wedding they want to pay for. There might be some things that they need to spend money on. But at this point, we have 2 specific cash flows that we need to account for. One, they do have a rental property that is in the process of being sold, where they're going to net after taxes to the state and federal level, they're going to net $100,000. So that $100,000 is going to flow into the property on November of 2023. So it's kind of a lease agreement. They're going to get they're going to get that money in 2023. They also want to have extra income. So $60,000, which is their expenses, is what they need to live off of to go to Kroger's, to go to this, buy clothes, buy gas, just everyday expenses, utilities, all that stuff. But the extra income, they want about $15,000 annually for the next 15 years for travel, for spoiling their grandkids, for having fun. So we don't want to put that number into their expenses, because the expenses I want to keep as a base. I want to add any extra income that you might want or they might want into a cash flow, because those might increase, it might decrease. We need to change that over time. Keep in mind, the software, Your Financial EKG, these people are clients of mine, and this is a living document. So they might call me 2 years from now, and we might have to adjust some things, because they might say, hey Drew, we're selling our house, we're going to move on the farm, or we're doing this, that, and the other, and we need to be able to add that back into the plan. And so that's why we have the cash flows. Now let's answer the question, can they retire? That's the main concern for David and Cindy. Well, if you look at this, at 61 and 57, starting with $1.4 million saved for retirement. Here's our annual cash flow, the extra income. They can do whatever they want with it. Here's our net monthly expenses. You can see they've gone up a little bit with inflation. Here's $85,000 coming into the property. That's $15,000 extra income going out. That's $100,000 of the rental property coming in. So we're netting $85,000 in that year of extra cash flow coming into their scenario. And if you look at this, at 100 and 104, they've got $1.9 million. They're actually ahead of the game. So remember what Cindy and David's main concerns were. Well, Cindy's main concern is what happens if David passes away. Because this scenario is both of them, both Social Securities, both of them living until 104 and 100. So let's go look at what happens if David passes away. And the reason we want to look at this is because if someone passes, if you're on Social Security, or even if you're not on Social Security, when one of your spouses passes away, you're going to lose the lesser of the two Social Securities, but your expenses are not going to change that much. A lot of people have this misconception that when I lose my spouse, I'm going to also lose all these expenses. Well, your light bill might change a little bit because the lights aren't on as much, but your cable bill or your streaming bill is not going to change. Your insurances are not going to change on your primary residence. Now, your car insurance may change because you might lose a car, but for the most part, what I have noticed as a financial advisor is if the male passes away first, the female normally keeps the same lifestyle or social interactions, okay? So if it's a female situation, then they usually continue to spend and continue to have the same socials that they did pre the person passing away. If this is a male situation and they're the lone survivor, then normally males, I always joke like they're Chris Farley, they could live in a van down by the river and they'd be okay. Doesn't mean that's bad or good, it's just different, right? We are different species. So let's look at this. I want to show David passing away immediately. That's the thing I want to show first. So what we're going to look at is we lose all Social Security. So the widow benefit is what Cindy's going to get. We determined if David passes away immediately, it makes sense for Cindy to take the widow benefit at 67, which would be $3,300, which was David's full retirement benefit at 67. So let's go to the retirement plan. So we'll look at this. David's passed away immediately. We've got $1.49 million. And it actually looks like a pretty good plan. Now, the one thing that Cindy told me was, hey, if he passes away early, I still want to travel. I'm just going to take my daughter. So I got to go back up into cash flows, and we've got to add in some of this extra income. So let's go here. Let's do this annually. We'll do $15,000 because that's what they want to spend. It's going to come out of the IRA. It's going to be for extra income, and we're going to do this for 15 years. Perfect. All right, so there we go back to retirement. And as you can see, she will still have at 100, $1.5 million. Now it's $400,000 less than when David lived, if he lived all the way to 104, but they're still in a really good place. So they were nervous, like if one of us passes away right away, what's going to happen to our portfolio? What's going to happen to our retirement income? What's going to happen to us? And financially, I can show them, I can say, listen guys, no matter what happens, I'm going to be here for you financially, but because you guys have saved and you've worked so hard and you have done the due diligence to be where you're at, you guys are going to be okay. Now emotionally, you're going to be a wreck, but financially, you're going to be all right. Okay, so the last thing they wanted me to look at was their investments. Okay, now we do an investment analysis with the Your Financial EKG, and we use some software for that. So this is David, and this is his portfolio, one of his portfolios. It's got $800,000 in it, okay? So what I like to look at when we're doing an investment analysis is a couple different things. The first thing I want to look at are what are the expenses on the portfolio. Now expenses for mutual funds or for ETFs, you can see that it's called an expense ratio. If you just type in the ticker symbol to Google, maybe you type in VOO, or if it's a mutual fund, it's a 5-digit ticker. And you can see the expense ratio. It has to be reported. Well, what the software does is it takes the expense ratio for all of these mutual funds. So you can see everything that's owned here. And what it does is it says, okay, for the portfolio, the total expense ratio is 0.54, and they're paying $4,306 in fees internally every year. So before they get out of bed on January 1st, 2023, 2024, 2025, their portfolio charges them $4,306. And so when I looked at this and when I showed this to David, I said, hey David, I don't understand this, because the way we work, we use low cost index funds, whether mutual funds or ETFs, and this right here seems really high, because we go back to your advisory fee, that's 0.85. So we say the 0.85 for your current advisor, and we add in this 0.54, and you're pushing almost 1.5%, well, it's really 1.4% on your overall fee. And I said, well, let me just for kicks and giggles, just because I like to do this, what if we compare that to one of our portfolios? So here's one of our portfolios, 0.05. That's the expense ratio. Now, as you can see, they're all really, the highest is 0.1. And it's because we use Vanguard ETFs. Now, we like Fidelity and Schwab and iShares and all of them, but in this portfolio, it's specifically Vanguard. So the fee's only 0.05 instead of 0.5. And that's a $4,000 savings on a yearly basis. If you take $4,000, you earn 6% over 10 years, that's $70,000 in savings. That's a big deal. That's a big, big deal. The other thing I like to look at is I say, okay, let's look at your portfolio and let's see how it's done year to date, 1 year, and 3 years. And so David and Cindy are in a conservative portfolio. They've been conservative since about the mid-40s. They went through 2008. They just want to be conservative. They lost a lot. They want to save money. And so we look at the portfolio, and it's a conservative portfolio. So if you compare their portfolio to the S&P 500, the S&P 500, which is, let's say that's the most growth, is at -14. So they're at -9, the market's at -14. That's pretty conservative. We look at year to date, S&P's down 15.5, they're down 10. So they're not losing as much as the market, which is the purpose of it. And over 3 years, the market's averaging 9.77 and they're averaging right at 5. So they're averaging 5% per year. So from an investment standpoint, I can go back and say, listen, the expenses are high, but you're conservative, and what you're trying to accomplish in your conservative portfolio is being accomplished. Now, is there a better way? Can we lower the fees? Sure we can. But what you're trying to accomplish is being done. And the last thing I like to look at is just the risk. We just stress test the investments and we say, okay, Dave, if we have another 2018 quarter 4 sell-off, that's when interest rates rose like they have been recently the last time, you'd be down 12%. The market was down 19%. Again, still conservative. Subprime crisis, the worst crisis we've had, that's the 2008 crisis, you'd be down 24%. the stock market would be down 41. So again, it's accomplishing what you are wanting it to do, which is to be conservative, okay? So listen, I hope that this has helped you on your retirement journey. Now, this is only a portion of the Your Financial EKG YouTube videos. Make sure you go back to the catalog, watch all the videos that'll help you get to retirement, through retirement, and protect your ability to stay in.